welcome back. This is Life of Lexy, episode 3, and today I really want to talk about something that was a once-in-a-lifetime experience that I had a year ago. I was fortunate enough to be on Temptation Island Season 2 on Netflix, which I don't even know how I managed to get on TV, but I did it after years of wanting to get on TV as a child. So I really wanted to talk about that whole experience and what that was like, being on a show, being on a professional set, filming, working with production, working with my castmates, what it was like living with strangers, what it was like working with Mark L. Wahlberg. Like, he was an amazing host. And also, too, what it's like now looking back on the show and watching it all the way through and seeing like the final product and how many cuts were made, how many edits were made. Like, it's so interesting now to look back on the show, see not only the guys' perspective and our perspective living with the guys, but also to go back now and to see the girls' perspective and what they were doing in their house. And it's just really interesting to see how that entire story was told. I do have a few notes here, and these are certain things that I wanted to touch on. So what did my life look like before filming? And this is what I was up to. Last year, I was working 2 jobs. I was working at a pool in South Beach, and it was so unbearably hot, and I was working pretty much every day of every week of every month, and I never got a break. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I really want to start committing more to doing content, more to putting myself out there on social media, more to acting and auditioning and modeling and all the things I'm passionate about, but I didn't really know how to take steps forwards to do that. And I remembered years ago, there was a casting director named Derek Henry who was consistently sending me DMs, and he was reaching out to me and he was telling me about different opportunities. But for whatever reason, I just really did. I thought it was a scam. And so I never reached back out to him. And so I looked at my old DMs and I saw the first time he DM'd me, it was like April of 2023. And last year of 2025, I answered him. So once I answered him, he referred me to his, somebody that works with him, another casting director or producer. Her name is Debbie Pierre. And this was sort of the interview process to get on the show. My initial interview was with Debbie, and she was hilarious, super nice, super sweet. She asked me to tell her about like my dating experiences, my life experiences, why I think I would be good on the show. I sort of went into all that. I got her laughing, thank God. And then she was like, no, you're definitely going to the next round. Then I got pushed to the next round. I interviewed with Debbie's boss. I can't remember her name right now, but anyways, she was also lovely, hilarious. We laughed a lot. I told her all of my stories, and then she pushed me to the final round. Now, this is a little bit scary. This was basically like an interview panel with the executive producer of the show, David Friedman. David, thank you for casting me. And like several execs from Netflix. I remember rushing home from work, doing my makeup in like 15 minutes, and sitting down for this interview and being like, okay, you're ready. And as soon as the camera came on, I don't know, something just happened. I just like took a deep breath. I was myself. And it's kind of awkward because you're talking to 5 people at once and you're explaining yourself and they're asking you questions. What do you think your role was going to be in the show? And I told them, I was like, I feel like I could be a source of support for people. I'm really honest. I'm really candid. I'm really forthcoming. I feel like I can help people solve their problems. And also, yeah, if there's someone of interest, I'm going to give it my best shot with dating because I haven't shared this before. But yeah, my dating life has not gone so well. So I was open to dating at the time. I thought it would be nice to meet people from, I don't know, areas of the United States that I didn't normally meet. After all of that, David, then a week and a half later, he reached out to me. We did like a quick 5-minute call. He told me I got the show, and that was it. I was going to Hawaii. And it was truly like a very surreal moment. I don't think that ever really sunk in. On the list of things that I have to get done, these are the next things I have to do. I need to do wardrobe. I need to pack. Like, I need to make sure the tickets are right and everything like that. And like all of the details are right. Also, too, I was quitting a job at the time and I had to put in my 2 weeks notice. Like, there was a whole bunch of things that I had to get done after that. So I think I was in shock. Yeah, I think I really was in shock that I was going to be on TV, and something that I had wanted since I was a kid was actually happening. Besides the interview process, prior to that, I don't think I ever even told anybody this. That wasn't the only show that I was auditioning for. Last year in the summer, I actually got flown to LA, and it was for a different show, and I was in the final round of casting, and I got flown out and I didn't make it. I got put as the alternate. That eliminated that option. And then I also filmed a pilot earlier that year with one of the housewives in the hopes of like the show getting picked up by a network to do a dating show in Miami, and that didn't get picked up. So it's really interesting how sometimes like the things that you pursue to the fullest, like it may never see the light of day, even though you film it, or it's just an opportunity that you don't get picked for. And so I just think it's really interesting how many no's I had to receive in order to get one yes, but it was the right yes. And so it was really worth it for me. This is why I did say yes. One, this was a once in a lifetime opportunity. It fulfilled a childhood dream. I've always been like the therapist in my friend and family group. So I just thought I would make a really good therapist on TV. What I thought the experience was gonna be, I thought it was gonna be me taking a vacation to Hawaii and there was just gonna be cameras around. And I thought it was gonna be, so much fun. And I thought it was gonna be really easy. And when you get there, you really do realize that it's a job and it's work. And even though it was such a fun time, I met really good girlfriends, really good friends, and I had like really fun interactions while I was there. You do realize it is a job. And, there's a sense of like, I guess, professionalism for that too, that I didn't necessarily think of at the time before I left. Leading up to that experience, once you know that it's a yes, it's very overwhelming, right? You're in shock. You're packing, wardrobe contacts you. They're like, okay, this is a lookbook of everything you need to bring. When I tell you I was like frantically, and I mean frantically shopping, I was like going in and out of Nordstrom's, like ordering off of line, everything that I thought I could possibly need. I did it. I tried to match the lookbook as close as I could. And also, not to mention, I know that we see a lot of like really wild people on reality TV, but this screening process was so thorough. When I tell you the background check brought up stuff from like my social media accounts from high school, when I mean they found everything, they found everything. And thankfully, I didn't have anything like crazy out there. But you like look back at your old profiles, it was like, oh my God, one, I looked like a child because I was. Two, I was like, oh, I hope that never sees the light of day just because it's like, ew, I'm like, I don't look so cute. And so it was just funny to see like your life's history all on like a few pages. And after the background check, you actually had to go through a psychological evaluation with a therapist. So they had to make sure you weren't crazy, and you had to take a personality test of 150 questions. It was like 2.5 hours. So this was a very thorough screening process. It's not just like, oh, you're hot, we want you on, reality TV. Guess what? You're going to Hawaii. No, this was like a 1.5 months, maybe 2 or 3 months process just to get to Kona, Hawaii. I didn't know it was going to be so thorough. I'm glad it is. But it's just interesting to think about because, I think there's a lot of news on recently like videos coming out about reality TV stars and the networks being like, oh, we didn't know the video existed, you know what I mean? Or we didn't know that wasn't out there. No, they probably know. Like, I'm just gonna let you know, they probably, for the most part, know about it or have seen it somewhere. They're just hoping it doesn't like pop back up again. You know what I mean? So that's really interesting to have learned. I think the second segment that I want to talk about from the casting and auditioning process, as intense as that was, getting to the island and really my first impressions of what it was like getting to Hawaii. So from Miami, I flew to Denver. From Denver, I flew to Kona, Hawaii. And actually, I did see a few castmates in the airport. I saw Xavier, I saw Kennedy, I saw TJ. And I saw them in passing. I was like, oh, those are like, young, good looking people. I was like, I feel like they might be on the show, but I wasn't sure. And so after I think it was 15 to 18 hours of travel, you get to Kona, Hawaii. Cast management picks you up right from the airport. Cast management is basically the people that look after you while you're, away from home, away from your family. Daniel, love you, Daniel. He was the best with Jubilee, Clive, Elon. All of them took care of us, Cheryl as well. They picked us up from the airport, got put in a car, immediately driven to a hotel, and then they check you in. And when they drop you off at your room, this is called being sequestered in your hotel room. And they did sort of bring this up a little bit. They're like, just so you know, we are keeping your room key. So you're living in this room for 4 or 5 days, but you do not have access to like go in and out and come and go as you please. So that was really interesting, sort of being like locked in a room, but hearing like the doors in the hallway, like you could hear like the other girls going in and out. So I knew the other single girls were like close by, and I just, wasn't gonna meet them yet. I think like on the 4th or 5th day, they would let us like go to the pool or go to the gym or sit by the beach for like a half hour a day, which is really nice. And then I met the girls. And it was one of those moments where you almost felt like you were back in school. Like I was back in college at the college dorm, like hanging out with my really good girlfriends. First of all, when I met everybody, everyone was gorgeous. Everybody was hilarious. And you could tell everyone's like individual personality. And honestly, we really did get along. And I'm really grateful for those girls. To me, that was one of the best parts of the entire experience, was meeting them and becoming friends with them and like laughing with them. So really grateful I met the girls. That first impression, I was like, okay. Once I got there and met them, I was like, this is really happening. I'm really here. I'm in Hawaii. Wardrobe's about to come into my room and, check off the outfits and everything like that I do have. They're going to see what I'm going to wear for my solo interview, see what I'm going to wear for my Netflix cast photo. It was just a really surreal experience. And then it was the first day of filming. The night before the first day of filming, cast management took our phones. This was something I was actually really looking forward to. At the time, I was getting like just bombarded with WhatsApp messages, regular messages, emails. I think I was just fed up with like, those little everyday things in life where you're like, okay, I just need a break. I was like willingly, here you go, take my phone, take my laptop, take it all. I don't want it. Enjoy. And they like zipped it up in a little Ziploc baggie and they put it in a safe. And that was the last I saw of it for 3 weeks. And I was like, whew, thank God. And so after they took our phones, we went to sleep. The next day, we put on the outfit that wardrobe told us to have and bring the bikini that they told us to have. We filmed our introductions, which I don't think anybody realizes this. Those intros were like, 10 to 30 seconds? The amount that every single thing in the show is so edited down, it's so compressed because obviously there's only so much time to fit everything in. Like, what was it? It must have been a 20-minute interview I did. It felt like 20 minutes, compressed to 10, maybe 15 seconds. The slow-mo photo shoot, I feel like that was a 10 to 15 to 20-minute photo shoot. Maybe like 5 seconds of that as well. It's just really interesting how you start to realize that even though you think you're going to be in it so much, you're really not, because you're not the main character. And that was something that was interesting to come to terms with. So it was kind of funny thinking that, you're going to be in the majority of the show and you just realize you're not. Leading up to the first day of filming where we met the couples, we actually practiced that first scene. We did a full day with the girls and production separately, not in the red bathing suits, not with the red cover-ups. We practiced that so many times, it was not even funny. And when I tell you it was so hot in Hawaii, it was probably 90, 95 with humidity, and our makeup, at least my makeup was sweating off. So at that point, I was like, okay, fuck it. Whatever I look like, I look like. We're here. We're doing this. If I look ugly on national television, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it at this point. We're just going for it and we have to do it. We had to come up with our own like intro line to introduce ourselves to the couples. And if I remember I think correctly, mine was, "Hi, my name is Lexy." What was it? It was something like, "I always speak my mind, and when I see something I like, I go for it. So I'm gonna go for you." And thank God they got off the majority of that, and they just put in, "I'm gonna go for you." The day I met the couples was a very real moment, right? All this practicing, all the wardrobe, all the everything was really leading up to this. And me and the girls, I would say, were pretty nervous. Now all of the large cameras were out, right? So we're walking up from really this like greenery area. We're walking up, we go out, we see the couples, and I was on the right hand side. I was in between, I think, Maya and Lulu. And I'm not gonna lie to you, when I saw the guys, I was like, oh fuck. Because where I was looking on the right, I first saw Jack. I thought Jack was an 18-year-old kid. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean that in a way where he looks very young. And at the time of filming, I was 28 years old. So it made me very uncomfortable to realize that I was like, oh my God, is this kid even of like drinking age? I don't know. And I'm like, I'm not going on dates with somebody that I'm 10 years older than. That's a little weird to me. I'm like, okay, he's out. And then I pan over to the right and it's Mikey. And it's Mikey and his girlfriend. And I see him do this, clock it, boop, boop, boop. And I was like, wait, what was that? I was like, it's giving friend. I was like, it's giving friend. Okay. I go over to the next couple and then it was Cole and his girlfriend. I was like, okay, I think he has blonde hair, green eyes. I'm like, okay. And then I pan over to the next couple, which was Summit and his girlfriend. And I'm like, okay, I think he has brown hair, blue eyes. And then I sweep back over and I look at the girlfriends and I'm like, oh my God, I don't look like any of them. I was like, I don't look like a single one of them. I definitely don't have blonde hair and blue eyes. I definitely don't have blue eyes at all. So I'm like, I don't really know who I'm going to pick here. I'm just going to go based off of who I think I look sort of the most alike, which at that time was Kaylee, but she has beautiful blue eyes that I don't have. So I was like, oh well, we're just going to choose Summit. We'll see how it goes. I gave Summit my bracelet. And that was a really nerve-wracking experience. Pretty sure I blacked out when I said my one-liner, but that's okay. And I walked away and that was it. Also, that was the first time that we were meeting the host, Mark L. Wahlberg. He is so good at his job. The amount of like improvisation he could do just from, being with the couples, getting to know us a little bit. He's truly so talented at his job. And also, he made us all feel really comfortable in what was a really awkward situation. That intro took so much longer than it looks like on actual TV. We were standing there staring at the couples probably for 15 to 20 minutes. And yeah, it was just an awkward situation. Then we moved into the house and it was really beautiful. But I do want to touch on the living conditions because I think people think that, oh, this is going to be like really glamorous. This is going to be like, you're on TV. So we were in bunk beds. There was no air conditioning. It was midsummer in Hawaii. We were sweating every time we went to sleep. And yes, cast management put like little AC units in our bedroom so we could fall asleep. Thank God. But there were fire ants. I got bit on my ass by a fire ant and I had to go to the medic to get like hydrocortisone cream so I could put on my butt so it didn't sting. There were centipedes that were poisonous. There were sea urchins off the rocks, like in the house, like off the rocks in the water in front of the house. So when we went swimming that one day, we had to be like with cast management. They had to clear the sea urchins. And also too, there were bugs everywhere. Regular ants, fire ants, cockroaches. And like we were in an open floor plan house. Also, one day we woke up and there was a mongoose, which is like a little ferret, going in and out of the house. So I think it was like a really funny sort of situation. I'm like, I feel like I'm camping in Hawaii because I kind of was. Oh, and also the 12 girls had to share a single bathroom. There was one bathroom in our living quarters, one shower, one toilet, which that was hard. You can imagine us getting ready for, the day, doing makeup. It was like makeup everywhere, really intense. And then sometimes I would go to like the guest bathroom outside the hall that like wasn't in our living quarters to get ready because there were like a little bit less people in there. Where did you sleep? All of that. So the girls had their own individual like bedroom and it was all bunk beds. I don't think I've slept in a bunk bed since I was like, 13. So I slept on the bottom and Julianne was in the top bunk. And when I tell you this was an open floor plan house, what I mean by that is literally the screens in the house were lifted up. There was no AC, okay? So there's no AC. You're sleeping in bunk beds. Everyone's really cramped in one space. And then obviously the guys are given the larger bedrooms because it's about them. Totally get that. But was really fucking jealous because I think Summit was the only one that had air conditioning, which is bullshit, but it is what it is. But me and the girls, we start settling in. Clothes are everywhere. Shoes are everywhere. Fast forward, we're told to like put on dresses. And now the big cameras are in the house and you're sort of just observing everything, right? Because you see all this movement around you, but you don't know what's happening and they don't tell you what's happening. The producers don't tell you what's happening. You're just kind of standing there waiting. So what were we doing? We were drinking, we were talking to each other, we were just, having fun. And then the guys come in, we meet them, we give them hugs, whatever, the introductions. That first night, I think we were asked to like play a game. This was the night where I think the guys were just, it's a shocking situation. I think they were uncomfortable. The girls were uncomfortable a little bit. We all understood that. But we were sort of told like, oh, this is going to be like a talent show-esque type of thing. And this is something that maybe I shouldn't have done this, like looking back in retrospect. This is something I did. I put like a champagne glass in my mouth and then I like poured the champagne. I poured the champagne in Summit's mouth and I didn't think too much of that just because in Scottsdale, I worked in bottle service. The girls and I would do that to each other. I didn't think that was like, I don't know, a super big deal. That's something I sort of thought was like a party trick and was like funny, but not something that was like, I guess, an advance towards somebody. And I think I might have scared Summit a little bit. So I like apologized to him. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. That was the first night, tried to talk to all of the guys a little bit. Mikey was hilarious. Summit, you could tell, just like a very wholesome guy. Cole was like a little bit more shy, but also seemed like cool. Jack was like very mellow. I would say very relaxed. But again, it was one of those circumstances where it's awkward, right? You all are forced to be living in a house together. You don't know anybody. You're supposed to be talking. There are cameras around you. I think you think that you're going to fully be how you are naturally in your own home. And that's what I thought it was gonna be like. I think the more I was there, I got used to it. But I think that first night, everybody was nervous. I was a little nervous, I'll say it. And I was a little bit too aware of the cameras, a little bit too aware of the microphones because we're all mic'd up. Yeah, and it took some getting used to for sure. And, we were trying to get to know them to the best of our ability. I will be honest, at some points, it was pretty difficult to talk to them. And I can talk to just about anybody, like honest to God, and have a great time and have a great day. But the guys were just sort of difficult to talk to. And I think they were really scared, obviously, because they wanted to be faithful to their girlfriends and, act in a respectable way. Totally get that. But it was to the point where I remember, I don't think besides my name and age and where I was from, I don't think anybody asked me like an actual question besides the girls until like day 7. And it was Cole and it had something to do with like my ACL injury and my track injury in high school. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And that was like the extent of it, right? It was very interesting to have to get to know these people in such a short time span because it was so uncomfortable. And also too, there was actually a therapist on set that we could seek out if we felt like we needed, we were feeling not our best on set. And I asked the therapist one time, I said, on your live feed that you're watching of us in the house with the guys, do we look pathetic? Because I feel like we're trying to have conversations with these guys. It's just not working. I feel like we're following them around the house. I feel like we look pathetic. She's like, no, you guys look like you are really trying, really putting in effort, really trying to get to know them, and they just look scared. I was like, oh, okay. Well, if that's what it is, then that's what it is. That made me feel a little bit better. She's like, you're not doing anything wrong. Keep doing what you're doing. I was like, okay, that was nice to get like some validation, some reassurance. As far as like waking up and filming, what an average day looked like, cast management would wake us up, depending on the time, depending on what we were doing, normally in the morning. And there was a 5-hour time difference for me, so I was actually getting up pretty early anyway. But they would wake us up sort of early depending on the day. We would get up. I was oftentimes the first one up because I liked the peace and the quiet. And I would wander through the house, go and get mic'd up. Behind the kitchen, there was a little pantry. and there would be someone from production there. They would mic us up. It would oftentimes be in our back or be in our pants or a skirt, whatever. And we would wander throughout the house and go about our day. All in the kitchen. There were cameras that were on like a little turn in the kitchen, in the living room, outside, on the trees, on the deck. Like there were cameras everywhere. There were no hiding from cameras. And they also said, if you hide from cameras, like that's just not going to be allowed. That's why you're here. If you didn't go on dates or you weren't like selected to go on dates, you were strictly at the house. It's not like you had, freedom to come and go as you please. That just wasn't an option. You're on set, it's a job. You are getting paid to be there. So they're like, you're not just like wandering around the island of Kona, even though that would have been amazing. The house was gorgeous. We were right on the water. It was beautiful. During the downtime, I remember like we asked for a volleyball and a football. So like Julianne, Sydney, me, all of the girls, Tiffany, we would all like pepper back and forth. We would pass the football back and forth with the guys when they were there and they, wanted to participate with us and hang out with us. And we just tried to pass the time. I honestly, when I was there, I did not think I was going to get selected for any of the dates. And the reason being was just because I didn't look like any of the girlfriends, like at all. I didn't get selected for the first date. I didn't get selected for the second date. And at that point, I was kind of just like cool with it. I'm like, okay, this is great. Like, I'm just going to give advice. I'm just going to be sort of in the background. I'm just going to be sort of like the free therapist. It sort of took the pressure off me a little bit. And I feel like that's when I sort of started being more myself, was sort of a week in, because I didn't feel like, oh, I have to make this work. I just felt like I was going to be friends with all the guys. Looking back, it's really interesting because one, we don't go to the bonfires with the guys. We were actually put in a hotel and we were removed from the house because the bonfires took place right next to our house. So they didn't want us hearing anything or being in the background or anything like that. So oftentimes the bonfires would take like 4 to 8 hours. The first one was the longest, and we all fell asleep in one hotel room, all of the girls. And then we were brought back to talk to the guys about what they saw at the bonfires and obviously like debrief with them and all of those things. Just so everybody knows, we do not know the girls' side of things. It would have been really helpful to know the girlfriend's perspective on everything. We were just getting the guy's perspective. Obviously, it's through their own lived experience. It's through their own lens. You really are only getting half of the story. Not to say that they don't know what's going on or they're lying necessarily. It's not even that. It's just, there's two sides to every story. So everything that I was hearing, I was trying to be fair. I think every girl in the house was trying to be fair to the girlfriends and be like, okay, well, this is their perspective and it's valid, but what's the girlfriend's perspective? Because that's valid too. So after the first 2 dates, I remember being sort of on, the deck? And then Cole was like kind of asking me, what was he asking me? I can't remember at this point. We were just having like normal conversation and he's like, I don't know. I think she may really like a guy in the house. It seems like they're hanging out a lot. Like, what do I do? I was like, honestly, to me, I know that you guys have problems. Everybody here has problems, but the problems you have, like, they really do seem fixable. I think you can work on them with her. And I will say this, the girls in the house, I'm not kidding when I tell you, this cast for girls probably was one of the best female casts they could have selected because everybody gave such solid fucking advice. Tiffany, professional therapist. I would say India, professional therapist. The amount of times that India, Christelle, Yesenia, the amount of times that all of the girls were like, and how does that make you feel? Was crazy. We really did try to be like a source of support, a sounding board. We tried to hear the guys. We tried to give them the female perspective on things. And I feel like a lot of them really did hear us on like certain things to correct in their relationship or make better, which was nice because we felt like, I don't know, we were being a source of support in a positive way and like helping them navigate through some issues. But yeah, it's really interesting watching the show back because now seeing the girlfriend's perspective on things, it sort of changes like the lens that I was experiencing things through, right? Obviously, I felt super bad for Mikey. Mikey was going through it. He was having a super hard time. He was very emotional. He cried a lot. There were a lot of moments where it was really emotionally draining being in the house because, the guys would see something at the bonfire, they'd be super upset, and then they'd come back in and they'd be like, oh my God, I just don't know what to do. I don't know what's going on. And we tried to be there for them as best as we could. But sometimes they, went off and did their own thing together. They would sleep in the same bedroom. They would journal together. They would, congregate together. And sometimes they didn't always want the girls around, which I get. But now thinking of the girlfriend's perspective and watching the show back, I see both sides, right? So it's just really interesting now versus seeing it through my own lens, seeing it through their lens too. There were several times that I remember the producers coming in to talk to the guys and just give them, I think, some words of encouragement, because it was at points really awkward when they didn't always want to interact with us. I think the producers were like, hey, listen, interact with them maybe a little bit more, just because it's I would assume they're this is a little tough to watch. You guys do have to interact with them, be friendly, open up a little bit. They're trying to be encouraging of that. So thankfully over time it did happen. I think after the second bonfire, the guys really started opening up and hearing us and taking our advice and listening to us. So that was nice. The 2 dates that I went on was the chocolate date and the mini golf date. And Cole asked me on both dates, which I was shocked because, again, I didn't even expect to get asked out on any dates. So I was happily surprised. That day, cast management or wardrobe came in and she was like, you don't know what you're doing for the dates. Cole didn't know either, so that was kind of cool. Everything is in reality TV, hurry up and wait. So I would get in the van. We got in the van for the date. We got to the location. Cole talked to the producer. They filmed us walking into this chocolate dessert bar, which was super cool. And, we were in the downstairs lobby. We were observing the little trinkets. I was looking at the desserts. We had a cocktail. They filmed us walking up the stairs. They filmed us getting a tutorial from a chocolate maker. We made actual chocolates. All of that was very real. The conversations were very real. Nobody told us what to say. Maybe the producers would ask us questions here and there. For me, I was very much so myself. So a lot of the conversations I had with Cole, I was it was really interesting to find out his perspective. He's honestly, I was never really taught it's okay as a man to talk about your feelings. He's honestly, at times, I don't even really know how to express the way I'm feeling. And I thought that in and of itself was very interesting because it's a lot of men in our country are ridiculed for expressing themselves, and they're called a pussy, or you're not a man, or you shouldn't express this because it's embarrassing. And I think that was something that I really learned through the guys. Oftentimes younger guys aren't taught that it's safe for them to open up and express the way they feel. Once we finished filming and did our post-dates interview, I was done with mine first, and I went straight to the bar, to be honest. I hightailed it to the bar. I'm gonna take advantage of this. I'm this is the first time I'm out of the house since I've been here. I'm gonna have a few drinks. So what turned into 1 or 2 shots, I was you get a shot and you get a shot. I was trying to make everyone take shots. And then Cole came in eventually and he had a few shots. And then we were in the car on the way back to the house, and we got back to the house. I was pretty lit, to be honest. I was pretty lit that night. I think that was really the night that I was the most tipsy. We got back to the house. We played, I think was it Truth or Dare? I think it was, or a King's Cup version of some type of game, and it was hilarious. Yeah, that night I definitely was tipsy and had a lot of fun. I think it's important to touch on, there were so many scenes that were cut out. At the beginning of us getting to the house, I was on the hammock outside, and I actually fell off the hammock. I rolled off the back, and Julianne was like, are you okay? I'm yeah, I'm okay. I thought I was gonna be made a meme, which would have been hilarious. Thank God they didn't put it in. But there were other things that they left out. We went swimming out in front of our house. That was out of it. There was a full beach day that we filmed. That wasn't even included. What else? There were family dinners where we were all sitting together and talking and having a really good time. And we would do a family prayer beforehand. You know what I mean? It was actually very wholesome. And what was the other thing that was cut out? Oh my God, lingerie night. I'm so sad that lingerie night got cut out. That was, I think, one of the only nights that everybody got like a little bit rowdy and let their hair down and have fun. And it didn't even make it in there. It's just really interesting to see how everything gets compressed and edited down, because it wasn't about us. Obviously, it was about the couples and their growth and their journey. So if it wasn't really of the utmost importance, yeah, like it just wasn't going to be in it. I think it's funny because you expect it to be in like chronological order of how it happened, and that just isn't like always the case. The second date I went on was the mini golf date. That was a lot of fun too. It was like an hour away. Again, got a little tipsy, had like seltzers, did mini golf. We played this or that. And the producers were like, would you rather do this or would you rather do that? And like all of those answers cut out. Really funny. I had a great time. I actually beat him at golf, by the way, which proud of that. And then we got shaved ice after. So those were like some really fun experiences that I had. And then obviously being in the house with the girls, I loved Sydney. Her laugh makes me laugh. I really loved all the girls. Julianne was so wholesome, so sweet, so kind. Everybody really did their best to show up for the guys, give free advice, give free therapy, tried to come together, be a source of support. I will say this, being in a situation like that without your phone, without access to the outside world, you don't even know what's going on in the outside world. And I don't mean to make this political, and I may not even leave this in, but like that was around the time of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Not that I even knew who that was at that point. I didn't even know that happened until like production was talking about it and cast management was talking about it. So it was really weird that you're truly sort of like in this bubble and you don't know what's going on in the outside world. I was like forgetting about really like my own problems in my own life because you're so invested in what's going on around you. I just thought that was a really interesting thing to mention, because you don't expect that you'll be in that like heightened situation, but it is, because that's all you're surrounded by, that's all you're talking about, that's all you're focused on. Towards the end of it, we sensed it was coming like to the end. There was the Temptation Haven that happened, and then the last date was supposed to be like a overnight date. I'm pretty sure Mark gave the guys a choice and they didn't want to do it, which is totally fair. Totally get that. I kind of had a feeling. I was like, there's no way these guys are going to do like an overnight date. They won't even like sleep in the same room. You know what I mean? So that was really interesting. And then that was around the time that we said our goodbyes, which was really, really sad. I got really emotional. Like the guys came back from the last bonfire that we were there for. They let us know that we were going home that night. And then we all like toasted to champagne, like with some champagne. I was sad. I was really sad because I made really good friends with the girls. I did enjoy the guys. They were really nice guys, and it felt like college was over or like summer camp was over. I was like, oh my gosh, but I'm leaving all my new friends. And so I got teary-eyed when I left for sure. I really missed the girls. I missed the girls when I went home. Thankfully, Julianne lives in Miami. Cindy lives in Miami. Kennedy lives in Miami, but she travels a lot because she's obviously a flight attendant. The girls and I, we do try to keep in touch. I do need to be better about that. But I will say this, out of everything, I'm happy that I had this experience of being on set, fulfilling a childhood dream of mine, getting to make new friendships, put myself in an uncomfortable situation. Like this is one of those things where it really is a once in a lifetime opportunity and you get lucky. And I think you just say yes and whatever happens, happens. And you just sort of go for it. I am really grateful for my time on the island, my experience filming. I did have a lot of fun, but it was exhausting because it was a job. It was emotionally draining. You're showing up for somebody 24/7. When I got home, I was like really emotionally, mentally, physically exhausted. I would say the hardest part after filming was after an 18-hour flight, you get home, you unpack your bags, and then you just sort of sit in like silence. And I was like, oh, this is weird. Because for 3 weeks, I was in a house where there was constantly something going on. Cameras being set up, cameras turning, you getting mic'd up, somebody yelling, somebody cooking, you know what I mean? Somebody outside passing the football or whatever. And then you're just sitting there in silence by yourself and you're like, did that even really happen? Like it felt like a fever dream almost. I was like, did I even really experience that? And then, you go back to normal life. And you start to come down from that really high adrenaline of like being in front of the camera and feeling like, you have to be super talkative all the time. And honestly, I got pretty depressed. I was like so exhausted, so tired. I think it just all hit me all at once, the jet lag, the experience, dealing with the more emotional side of the experience, leaving the girls, being sad about that. It all hit me at once. And I think it really took me like a few weeks to a few months to sort of like get back into a normal routine. And I feel like, there should have been a little bit more of like a transition phase. I don't know, maybe I should have gone back to therapy at that time because I just felt like, oh my God, I have all these new friends. And then it was like taken away. Does that make sense? And then you feel really lonely. So you go from feeling really surrounded and really overstimulated and really overwhelmed and like thinking of every little thing to then just nothing. And I wish I was more mentally prepared for that and emotionally prepared for that. Obviously, I had no one to ask about, like, oh, what happens after you film a TV show? So that was my first time experiencing that. And I didn't really have a mentor to tell me how to handle that. So, I did the best I could. I talked to, my close friends, girlfriends, guy friends, got their advice. I don't know, maybe I had a beach day once I got back. I slowly like eased my way back into it, went back to work, all of those things. And then it was like, what, 8 or 9 months? You hear nothing from the production really until like a month before. They, sent us our cast photo. That was really exciting. And then the trailer so we could post it. That was really exciting. But other than that, it's just this time span of months at a time of you just hearing nothing about the show. And I was almost like, okay, is this even coming out? I was like, did it get canceled? Did we just film for nothing? I don't know what I thought. I think I was doubting whether or not I was actually going to see myself in the show on Netflix. I don't know what about that. Maybe that's imposter syndrome. I don't know. I just didn't believe that it was coming out. Like, I wouldn't believe it until I saw it on Netflix, if that makes sense. This is sort of what the show taught me. I think, especially in today's world, I don't think men are taught how to be vulnerable. I think they're taught that they need to be really strong all the time and they can't communicate their emotions or their feelings or that they're hurt. They shouldn't cry. I think those are a lot of really toxic masculine traits that our society like pushes on a lot of young guys, and it makes them feel like they can't speak up when they're struggling or they can't ask for advice. That's something that I really noticed on the show. The guys were like, well, this is really our first time talking about these types of topics. And all the girls were like, what do you mean? Right? Because they weren't given that permission to like feel safe doing that growing up, which I thought was really interesting, but it does make sense. So that was sort of what I took away from the guys' experience. And I will say this, I would say the majority of the guys really tried hard to look at themselves, work on themselves, take the feedback that we gave them, take the feedback that Mark gave them, and really work on themselves to be better people and better people in their relationships. I would say for the girls, some girls were bettering their relationship, some girls were moving on. I think just as like an overarching theme, I think women are taught to stay in bad circumstances because, one, I don't think we were always taught to speak up for ourselves. Like, it's our job as women to be the glue that holds everything together, to be the emotional support, to give love our greatest try. Like, you don't give up on somebody if you love them. And sometimes that isn't always healthy, especially in terms of a relationship. So I would say I noticed this combo of, girls being able to move on and find themselves and find somebody that treated them well. And also this combination of women staying in something too long because they're comfortable. And I think that's a trap that we all fall into sometimes. Like, you stay in things too long because it's a comfort to you, even though you know you should leave. Sometimes it's not enough for you to take steps forwards until something really like bad happens and it forces you to take steps forward. So I would say those are two really major themes from the show. And also things that I learned about myself. I learned that I could fulfill a childhood dream of being on TV and being on a major streaming network. I learned that I could work on a set, even though I had been on modeling sets before. I had never been on an acting set with like real cameras, real production, real cast. I learned that I could do the things that I always wanted to do. And that was really reassuring for me. And also it made me really happy and focused and motivated to go back and to start my own podcast and to start things of my own and hopefully to continue to progress towards other opportunities. And also too, it taught me that I was a little bit stronger than I thought. And like, even though I'm an anxious person, like I could be on set and still be myself and still make good relationships and connections with the girls and have good conversation with the guys. And it could be an awkward situation. And even though it was awkward at times, like I could still do it. Also, too, it made me realize that I want somebody for myself that is devoted to me and wants to put effort into a relationship with me and wants to sincerely get to know me. And if we have problems, he's willing to work on it and he's willing to take feedback and criticism and show up better next time. And I also realize it's like, as a woman, should I stay in things that are bad for me? No. I think there's 2 questions that people wanted answered. How you stayed true to yourself despite pressure from producers. Even on day 1, when I first met the producers and we were coming up with like my introduction and my one-liner, I was very firm on I'm not going to say crazy shit on national television that isn't an accurate representation of me. I think the producers from day 1, they just knew like, yes, I wanted to show up. Yes, I wanted to be involved and participate and be fun, but I wasn't going to make myself look bad just to get on TV. And I think because they knew that, they just sort of like let me do my own thing. And it ended up working out in my favor because I would say the person that I was on TV was pretty similar to the person, I am. Maybe a little bit more hyper, a little bit more excited than in everyday life, in my own apartment at home alone, right? But still a very similar version to myself. And then the second question, how hard was it mentally to transition to a TV personality mindset? Were you different? Okay, I feel like I just answered this, but no, I don't think I was super different. I think once I got into like the groove and the schedule of everything, you sort of calm down. You sort of forget the cameras are there, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. And you sort of like settle into yourself a little bit. So I think the longer I was there, the more comfortable I became. Do I think I was like a little bit more bubbly? Yes. But do I think I was a different version of myself? No. I did want to thank David Friedman, the executive producer of Temptation Island. Thank you for casting me. Thank you to all the casting producers and, taking the time to talk to me, cast management, Daniel, Jubilee, Clive, Elon, Cheryl, all of the people, wardrobe, hair and makeup, like everybody that even made it possible. I really did have so much fun. I made memories of a lifetime. I had an experience of a lifetime. So if you guys are listening to this by chance, thank you so much. It really was. It was a childhood dream come true. So thank you. And also too, David, I'm not sure if you're listening to this, but when the singles and I got back together for the reunion in Miami, we were talking about it and we're like, well, what if we did like a spin-off show? Not we, but like, what if there was a spin-off show for the singles? What if there was like a show called Tempters in Paradise or something like that? So maybe just some food for thought. If you wanted a spin-off show about like the singles possibly dating each other from this season, you never know. That might be something fun to consider. A little tidbit of advice for people who have an interest in getting on reality TV. Obviously, I talked about my own casting process. This is what I would do if I was doing this over again. 1, I would activate your social media accounts. I would show that you're present on social media. I would maybe get some professional pictures taken, whether it's by your friends with a professional camera or it's modeling pictures, acting pictures, headshots with good makeup, good lighting, good background sets. Show your personality in your captions or in your videos on TikTok. Show the world who you are. And I know that can be scary, but it is going to catch the attention of people. And my modeling portfolio was, years ago, what caught the attention of Derek Henry, who was the casting producer. I think really put yourself out there, be present, be active. If you want, apply directly to these shows. All of these shows have applications. Obviously, there's a deadline, but if you fill it out and you make a good impression, yeah, they're gonna get back to you. Otherwise, I can link the people who casted me because they are legitimate. And just another word of advice, nobody should be making you pay to participate in a casting. Casting should be free, and if they are making you pay, it is probably a scam. So if I were to do it over again, that would be my approach. Even if you get a no, I would keep going until you get a show that you feel like would be a good fit for you. Whew. Okay, you guys, that was a long one. Thank you for listening. Like, share, subscribe. That was my experience being on Temptation Island. I'm so grateful for it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I will see you next time.